It was supposed to be the perfect holiday escape. On December 12, 2016, Lauren Fields, a 38-year-old graphic designer from Portland, Oregon, and her 9-year-old daughter Mia checked into the cozy Blackpine ski resort nestled deep in the Colorado Rockies. The resort was famous for its postcard-perfect slopes, quiet cabins, and thick pine forests that made it feel like a winter fairy tale. Lauren had been through a rough divorce the year before and saw this trip as a healing break for both her and Mia. She documented their arrival with cheerful Instagram posts, tagging the resort and snapping photos of Mia building a tiny snowman on their cabin porch. Over the next 2 days, staff and other vacationers saw them frequently on the beginner ski runs, in the hot chocolate lodge, and even at a nearby gift shop where Mia begged for a snow globe shaped like a wolf. Lauren was quiet but kind, the sort of person who smiled at strangers and always tipped generously. Mia, full of energy, talked excitedly about snow tubing and spotting animal tracks in the woods. Nothing about their behavior suggested anything unusual. No arguments, no strange visitors, no signs of fear. Just a mom and daughter enjoying their time in the snow. On the third morning, December 15th, they signed out a resort trail map from the front desk and told an employee they were going to explore the beginner's scenic Lupan Izu 1-hour route that started and ended not far from their cabin. It was a popular choice for guests with children, especially those looking for a peaceful walk rather than skiing. The weather was lightly overcast, with a few flurries, but nothing the staff considered dangerous. They were dressed warmly in a red coat and gray snow pants, Mia in a bright blue ski jacket with a pom-pom beanie. They left around 10:30 a.m. That was the last confirmed sighting of them, when they didn't return by late afternoon. Staff assumed they had simply gotten distracted or taken a shuttle into town. But when night fell and their cabin remained untouched, concern quickly turned to panic. Their belongings were still there, Lauren's phone plugged into its charger, a book open on the bed, and 2 untouched cups of cocoa growing cold on the table. Mia's stuffed rabbit, a constant travel companion, was still resting on her pillow. No signs of packing, no note, no distress, nothing to suggest they had gone anywhere beyond what they'd told the front desk. Ski patrol was dispatched that evening with snowmobiles and tracking dogs, combing the trail loop and nearby woods. But fresh snow had already fallen, covering any tracks. No footprints, no ski marks, not even dropped gloves. It was as though the forest had swallowed them whole. By sunrise the next morning, December 16th, the Blackpine Resort had turned into a nerve center of concern and confusion. Lauren and Mia still hadn't returned. Resort staff, now visibly alarmed, began calling nearby hospitals, ski lifts, and local transit services, hoping the two had somehow taken a wrong turn or gotten a ride into town. But no one had seen them. Their names weren't on any shuttle log, and no one matching their descriptions had entered the nearby diner, gas station, or general store. It was as if they'd simply vanished from the trail without warning. Without reason, by 10 a.m., sheriff's deputies from the nearby town of Breckenridge were on site, taking statements and launching a full-scale search. Helicopters were dispatched to scan the tree line. Drones hovered over the resort's outskirts. Dogs sniffed through the woods, but the deeper they searched, the more baffled they became. The scenic loop Lauren and Mia set out on was clearly marked, safe, and just 2 miles long. It wasn't the kind of place people got seriously lost, especially in daylight. Yet not even a scarf, a dropped glove, or a misplaced ski pole had been found. When officers entered the Fields rental cabin to look for clues, they found something even more unsettling. Lauren's purse was still on the nightstand wallet, untouched, driver's license and credit cards inside. Her phone was fully charged but showed no outgoing calls after the night before. Mia's tablet sat on the bed with a paused cartoon playing on screen. The curtains had been drawn closed, the heater running, and a pair of damp boots sat by the front door, boots Lauren had worn the day before, meaning she had left wearing a different, newer pair. They were missing, along with a small pink backpack, and 2 travel thermoses, but that was it. Everything else was there, undisturbed. Volunteers from the community joined the search by nightfall. Thermal imaging drones scanned the forest for heat signatures, but temperatures had dropped sharply, and hopes began to dim. Rumors spread like wildfire. Had they fallen into a hidden ravine? Was there a predator in the woods? Or had someone followed them, lured them off trail? But there were no signs of a struggle, no distress calls, no sightings. Even their footprints had been erased by the snowstorm that passed through the area less than 6 hours after they vanished. As day turned to night again, a thick silence hung over the resort. Tourists whispered uneasily in the lodge. The front desk phone rang non-stop, with reporters and panicked calls from Lauren's family. Posters with their faces went up on every tree and trailhead. The investigation had only just begun, but already, something about this disappearance felt different. Too clean, too quiet, too calculated. As days turned into weeks, the official search was scaled back, and the case shifted from an active rescue to a missing persons investigation. With no evidence of an animal attack or natural accident, suspicions began to grow and they pointed in all directions. Online forums lit up with speculation. Some believed Lauren had planned the disappearance herself, possibly to escape the responsibilities of single motherhood or to start a new life under a new identity. But investigators quickly found holes in that theory. Lauren had no criminal history, no secret bank accounts, and had made no suspicious purchases in the weeks before the trip. Her social media activity showed excitement for the vacation, not escape. Others turned their attention to Lauren's ex-husband, Daniel Fields. A quiet, reserved software engineer from Seattle, he had full visitation rights and a clean record, but grief sometimes has a way of turning suspicion into accusation, and rumors swirled that Daniel might have followed them to the resort or hired someone to intervene. Yet every alibi checked out. He had been at work, logged into multiple virtual meetings, and no surveillance footage placed him anywhere near Colorado. Even Lauren's parents, though devastated by the loss, publicly stated they didn't believe Daniel had anything to do with it. Still, theories persisted, some grounded, others bizarre. One witness, a guest at the resort, told police they remembered seeing a man in dark clothing standing off-trail near the scenic loop around the same time. Lauren and Mia were reported missing. He was never identified. Was he simply another hiker, or had someone been watching them? This single, unconfirmed sighting became the spark for dozens of armchair investigations. Reddit threads dissected blurry photos from vacationers' cell phones, hoping to catch a glimpse of a shadowy figure in the background. Nothing ever came of it. As weeks passed, the lack of physical evidence became almost disturbing in itself. No one could explain how two people, one of them a child, could disappear in such a contained area with no screams, no signs of panic, no trace. An FBI profiler brought in to consult on the case noted that the cleanliness of the disappearance suggested planning or interference, but by who and why? The profiler wouldn't say more. Even local law enforcement began to quietly consider the possibility of human involvement, though no leads ever solidified into charges or suspects. Meanwhile, Lauren's family hired private investigators who spent months retracing every step of their journey. From their drive to Colorado to the receipts found in her car, nothing stood out. It was as if they had walked into the forest and been erased from the world. Every theory came with its own set of flaws. Every path of inquiry led to a dead end. Yet still, no one could shake the feeling that someone knew more than they were saying. By the spring of 2017, the Fields case had officially gone cold. The melting snow revealed no new evidence, no clothing fragments, no human remains, not even disturbed ground. Dozens of trained volunteers had scoured the forest with cadaver dogs, but the area was vast, and time had not been kind to scent trails. With no new leads and mounting public pressure, law enforcement quietly began scaling back their resources. News vans disappeared. Search teams returned home. Lauren and Mia's names faded from national headlines. In Blackpine, locals spoke of them with a kind of haunted reverence, warning hikers not to stray too far off the trail. Despite the fading public interest, Lauren's parents refused to give up. They moved temporarily to Colorado, working closely with a private investigator and local search and rescue experts. Every few months, they launched new search efforts funded out of their own pockets, renting drones, hiring trackers, even bringing in a psychic medium at one point. Their hope never wavered, but with each passing year, it became harder to ignore the silence. No bones, no artifacts, no calls. The woods had kept it secret, and time only made it darker. The following winters brought more snow, more hikers, and more theories. In 2019, a woman hiking with her dog near the southern ridge of the resort claimed she found a scarf that looked similar to one Lauren wore in old photographs. For a moment, hope flared, but DNA testing proved it wasn't hers. In 2020, a frozen lake 2 miles east was drained due to drought conditions. Divers searched the icy bottom after rumors surfaced of a submerged snowmobile. Again, nothing. Each lead, no matter how promising, dissolved into nothingness. The case files grew thicker, but no closer to resolution. Even the sheriff's department began avoiding media questions. When a new detective took over the case in 2021, she admitted privately that she believed the area had been searched too narrowly, but expanding the grid meant moving into uncharted, dangerous terrain, rugged cliffs, bare territory, and avalanche-prone slopes that were nearly impossible to explore without major funding. She requested additional resources from the state, but was denied. The case, in official terms, had become inactive pending new evidence. Yet despite the cold status, the mystery never left the minds of those who had followed it from the beginning. It became a modern ghost story, whispered around resort campfires and ski lodges. Some believed they'd been stalked by someone who knew the land well. Others insisted they were still alive, hidden somewhere, forced into silence. But most simply shook their heads and said the same chilling phrase: people don't just vanish like that, not without help. It was a sweltering afternoon in July 2023. Nearly 7 years to the day since Lauren and Mia Fields had vanished. When 28-year-old hiker Erin Cho set out for what was meant to be a solo, meditative weekend trek through the outer eastern ridgelines of Blackpine Forest, Erin wasn't a thrill-seeker. She preferred the quieter, lesser-traveled paths, the ones not marked on glossy ski maps. That weekend, she had camped 2 nights deep in the wilderness, far beyond where most tourists ever ventured. On the morning of her 3rd day, while descending a narrow trail along a dry creek bed, she spotted something half buried between 2 jagged boulders, something completely out of place in the untouched wild. At first glance, it looked like litter, but when she leaned in closer, a chill ran through her despite the heat. A child's glove, pink with a tiny cartoon snowflake embroidered on the wrist, lay frozen stiff with age. It was wedged tightly under a rock, weathered but unmistakably preserved. Erin paused, the air suddenly thick with unease. She looked around. Less than 5 feet away, she spotted a second object, a rusted metal thermos. Dented and partially cracked, its lid still screwed on. Her instincts screamed that this wasn't trash, it was a message. A memory, or worse. Evidence. Erin pulled out her phone and snapped several photos. As she moved carefully through the brush, she noticed subtle details no one else had seen. For years, a broken branch, an oddly smoothed patch of dirt, something faintly resembling disturbed ground. About 15 feet uphill, half hidden by leaves and debris, lay a small blue backpack, collapsed in on itself but still intact. The zipper was closed. Erin didn't touch it. She backed away slowly, her breath shallow, and marked the GPS coordinates, before returning to a ranger station, silent and pale. Authorities were skeptical at first. Over the years, dozens of discoveries had turned out to be unrelated or staged. But when a recovery team arrived at the location and began carefully unearthing the area, their demeanor shifted. A field medic reportedly turned away and vomited after seeing what was uncovered. Rangers cordoned off the area immediately, and, for the first time in years, the field's investigation was reopened as active with physical evidence on site. News vans reappeared within 24 hours. Helicopters hovered once again over the tree line, and whispers of "they've been found" spread like wildfire across the town and internet. But even before forensic testing was complete, there was something deeply disturbing about what they found. The backpack contained a cracked photo frame, a faded picture of Lauren, Mia, and a man who couldn't yet be identified. And inside the thermos, not coffee, not soup, but something far more chilling, a child's bracelet, carefully wrapped in plastic, completely untouched by decay. Whatever happened out there, someone had either preserved these items, or left them behind intentionally. The following morning, a full forensic team arrived at the remote location Erin Cho had discovered. It took them nearly an hour just to secure the steep rocky perimeter and set up ground-penetrating radar. What they found below the surface stunned even the most seasoned investigators. Just 18 inches beneath the soil, concealed beneath a layer of tightly packed rocks and frostbitten moss, were 2 skeletal remains, curled unnaturally together in a shallow depression carved into the earth. Despite nearly 7 years of exposure to the elements, the bodies were astonishingly well preserved in the cold, dry conditions, still partially dressed in torn and weather-worn ski gear. A small, tattered pom-pom beanie lay beside the smaller frame. Initial forensic analysis confirmed the worst fears. The remains were consistent in size and condition with those of Lauren Fields and her daughter, Mia, though DNA testing was still pending. The clothing, items recovered, and physical characteristics made the identification almost certain. But what disturbed investigators even more was the position of the bodies. Mia's skeleton appeared to have been clutching Lauren's arm, as if they had died huddled together, but Lauren's body was twisted, her right arm reaching outward, as if she had been pointing toward something before death. Near their remains, under a stone wedged between tree roots, officers discovered a small, sealed plastic Ziploc bag. Inside it was a note, written in faded blue ink, the letters shaky but legible. It read, "We got lost. I think I missed the ridge marker. She's getting cold. Please, if anyone finds this Dell, my husband, I tried everything. We love you." It was signed, simply, Lauren. Investigators stood in silence as the note was read aloud, but one detective noticed something strange. The note was dated December 17, 2016, 2 full days after they were reported missing, suggesting they had survived longer than anyone believed. But the mystery deepened further. When investigators mapped the location, the bodies were found nearly 12 miles southeast of the original scenic trailer location that would have been impossible to reach on foot in one day, especially with a child in tow and fresh snow falling. The terrain between the scenic loop and the discovery site was rugged, with cliffs, frozen rivers, and dense forest. There were no clear trails, no signs they had camped or attempted to build shelter. Stranger still, Lauren's boots showed almost no damage, suggesting she hadn't walked all the way there. Was someone helping them? Or had someone taken them there? As search crews continued to comb the surrounding area, they found no sleeping bags, no campfire remains, no food wrappers, nothing to suggest an extended survival effort. In fact, aside from the backpack, the thermos, and the note, nothing else was found near the site. Not even their cell phones. The detectives began asking the question no one wanted to consider: had they been alive, and then relocated? If so, by who and why was there no evidence of that person's presence? The case had shifted once again, not from missing to found, but from tragedy to something far more chilling, as forensic teams continued examining the site where Lauren and Mia were found. More anomalies began to surface, details that didn't align with the official timeline or the terrain. The autopsy reports confirmed the cause of death as advanced hypothermia, but with a chilling detail: both bodies showed signs of minor healing injuries, suggesting they had survived for more than 48 hours after becoming lost. Mia's leg had been fractured, possibly from a fall, and there were signs that Lauren had attempted to stabilize it using fabric from her own clothing. But what disturbed investigators most was the lack of frostbite on Lauren's hands, despite her having died in sub-zero temperatures. Had she been given gloves after losing her own? Toxicology tests yielded another surprise. Though trace elements of dehydration and starvation were present, Lauren's system contained a sedative compound, one not commonly found in over-the-counter medication. It wasn't lethal, but it was powerful enough to induce drowsiness, confusion, and disorientation. Authorities began questioning: had Lauren ingested something willingly, perhaps as a last resort to ease her daughter's suffering, or had it been given to her? If someone had encountered them in the woods, someone not listed in resort logs or official searches, it meant this case might not be a tragic accident at all, but something else entirely. Then came the most disturbing find. 300 yards uphill from the burial site, behind a collapsed tree covered in moss, investigators located a handmade wooden marker, a crude cross, fastened with twine, and driven into the soil. Nailed to it was a strip of fabric cut from Mia's ski jacket, and below it, carved into the wood in uneven lettering, were the words, "She sleeps. She's warm now." There was no signature, no footprints around it, no fingerprints on the wood. Someone had placed it there. But when, and why? The ground around the marker showed signs of disturbance, but no recent activity. Some believed it had been there for years, weathered, but somehow unnoticed until now. Detectives returned to the original trail with a new perspective. They scoured archived drone footage from the original 2016 search, and noticed something chilling. In one frame, far off in the trees, a single dark figure, standing still, almost blending into the pines. The quality was poor, and it was dismissed at the time as a shadow or tree stump. But now, with the discovery of the sedative and the handmade marker, it took on a far more sinister tone. Who was that figure? Why weren't they seen again in any other footage? And could it be connected to the unidentified man, reportedly spotted watching the trail the day Lauren and Mia vanished? Despite the breakthroughs, no arrests were made. No suspects named. the findings only raised more terrifying questions. How did Lauren and Mia end up so far from their trail? Why had they survived for days with no sign of food or fire? And most haunting of all, who was with them during those final hours? If Lauren had written that note as a farewell, then who placed it in a sealed bag, buried the bodies so neatly, and carved that cryptic message into the wood? To this day, no one knows for certain what really happened to Lauren and Mia Fields during those final, silent days in the mountains. The case remains open but stagnant, haunted by fragments of truth that never quite add up. Was it a tragic accident? A terrible miscalculation in the wild? Or did someone cross their path, someone who never intended to be found? The forest, it seems, still holds its secrets, and as the wind moves through those trees, past the marker carved by unknown hands, there's a chilling thought that lingers for anyone who dares to hike too deep into Blackpine. Some disappearances aren't about getting lost. They're about being taken.
If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Most importantly, subscribe and hit the bell icon so the next secret finds you first.